Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Grandmaster Coding. Today I'm going to discuss Java programming, variables, and operators. Before going into deep, let's see what is variables and operators. Getting started with variables. Variables are assignments to temporary data in a memory. A variable will have a variable name by which it can be deferred by other methods function. Now, when you declare a variable, it will be declared by a reference name, which cannot be a keyword. We will learn the identifier rules just in the next slide. Variables are temporary and will remain active till the program runs. Yes, the variables cannot be reused when the program has been terminated. Since variables are temporary, we may use file systems to store the user data. Once a variable is declared, you cannot declare another variable with same name. Now, declaration of variable, the name you know with is known as identifier. You know that this is a variable, so this reference name is known as identifier. In Java, two identifiers cannot be same. Types of variables. There are a total of 5 types of variables. Actually there are more, but this is due to basic, I'm not covering all of them. The first type we are talking is integer data type. Let's get into the slide. Integer data type. The integer variable is those with no decimal numbers but are integers. You may have learned integers in schools as well. Those numbers which don't have any decimals, neither they are in fraction or in rational format. They are called integers. They continues from negative infinite to positive infinite. Any number between this range is termed as integers. Always remember, integers do not have a decimal point. The integer variable is declared using the int keyword. The int keyword is actually the abbreviation of the integer. You can remember it by that only. To declare a variable of integer data type, you have to write this statement: int the identifier name, which is var name in this example. So this var name is the identifier of the data type int, but we did not initialize any value into it. Therefore, it is taking some space in your memory, but it is not actually active right now. Let's go to the rules of writing variables. Rules for writing variables. Variable must not be keywords. Reserved keywords that I have already discussed in my previous session should not be used for identifiers. In any type of identifiers, it should not be used in class identifiers as well, methods identifiers, and of course variable identifiers. Variables are case sensitive, that is myvar and myvar, which has two case, uppercase and lowercase, are different variables. Since Java is case sensitive, you can use keywords, but with any of its character being uppercase, or you can switch the case to use it. But still it will be best not to use any keywords so that there is no confusion between any methods and identifiers. Variables should start with an alphabet rather than a numeric value. There, in identifier, you cannot start with any special characters such as @ asterisk, slash, neither with numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3, decimal 0.1. Those are totally invalid. Variable names cannot contain dashes, brackets, except for square brackets for arrays, periods, commas, and operators. Operators actually the special characters that works on variables as well as numerical values. Operators cannot be used in identifier because it will confuse the compiler that what function we want to execute. Variables cannot contain any types of brackets except for the square bracket, because square brackets is used at the end of the variable name to specify arrays. Since array is not in our agenda today, we will not be talking about that in this session. Okay, let's see what are the more data types. Decimal data types. Now what are decimal data types? Decimal data types are those which stores values in form of decimals. That is, the value will have a floating point or a dot. It is similar to integer, but the difference here is that it can store any number from negative infinite to positive infinite, but with a decimal point. You can store numbers like 10. Yes, you can store numbers like that, but you have to specify 10.0. Even though it is not having any decimals, you have to specify so that the float and double does not get confused. Now there are two types of decimal data types. What are those? Float and double. Both have same functionalities to store decimals, but the difference between float and double is in their capacities. Float can store up to one decimal point, as in the example 0.5 in positive and negative 2.9. But double can store more than one decimal points or decimal places, 0.697 in positive and negative 7.256. It can be even more depending upon the calculation being done. Since double can store more than one decimal places, it may take much computation power to calculate some functions. Those are all exceptions. I have given all the links of Visual Studio Code and Java SDK and JDK. You can download them now and test your programs we are going to use in here. Let's go to our next slide. The next variable type we are going to face is true false. Actually there is one more, that is null, means nothing, neutral. Okay. So in computer science we know binary is very important part. Yes, no computer cannot operate without this. The Boolean data type actually based on this. It will take three types of values only: true, false or null. True means if a statement is correct or it is satisfying the condition given by the user. The false statement is actually used so that the condition has not been matched, then it will output false. Null means neutral. It happens when there is some kind of error in parsing the condition. It may be true, it may be false. Therefore, it is null. It is neither true neither false. For example, any number greater than 50. It is 51 also, it is 52 also. So it is null. Okay. The Boolean is used to specify the condition to be true, false or neutral, as I said. Now how to declare variable with Boolean. Boolean and your variable name. Actually every variable declaration is just same. If you have to declare float, you say float variable name or identifier. If I say this double identifier, this will only declare, it will not initialize any value into them. So it will take some space which is doing absolutely nothing. So it is recommended not to create variables that is of no use, because they will slow down the processing speed of your code if they are not in use, but you are still declaring them. It's a waste of memory only. Okay, so what we have next is text. Text and characters are given both. I have given them both. Okay, types of variables, strings and characters. Imagine that you have to store your name in a variable. How can you do that? You cannot do it with integers because your name is not a number. You cannot do it float, bool, or even double. So there is another data type called string. String data type stores a line of text that can be read by normal human beings. That is in the language of English. Usually English, you can store strings in various languages as well, but the main Unicode defines English only. Okay. To declare a string variable, we will say string and the identifier name. Always remember to give this semicolon. Without this semicolon, the program will return error. There is also one data type that stores characters. It stores alphabets, but the difference here is it stores it individually instead of in a string manner. That is, if you use card data type or character data type, you can store only one data, for example character, your variable name or identifier name, and you can say A only or B only. If you want to use multiple, you have to use array. We will discuss it in next session. So let's get into some examples of variables. We will be using Visual Studio Code. If you don't have it, please download from the link given in the description. Okay, so I have already discussed how to work with this GUI, so I am no more going to discuss about it. Let's add our new folder. Let's create our new file, which is, you can give any name that is that suits you. This is workspace. I will give example.java. That is the file name I am going to use. So I have got my example.java in my editor. Now I have to set up this console. I have also shown you how can you set up this console in the previous episode. So if you don't know how to do that, just go check out my previous episode. Okay, so let's first set up our directory of the command prompt to the directory we are saving our file, that is the JDisk. So I will say cd, which is java today. This is the folder we are using. So I will say show me the files directory. We have example.0. Yes, we have it. Now we are going to create a class. I have already told how can you create a class, how can you define a method in my previous episode. Please go check it out before going into it. This episode is going to rushing all the concepts that I have learned before. So if you don't know what I have learned before, you cannot link that with this episode as well. Example. So we have a class example and we are declaring a method main, since we do not need any more method. You know why I am giving this. Okay, now we are going to work with integers first. Let's say I want an integer whose identifier will be a. I have defined a. Now how can you initialize that? For that we have to go to the operators section. So let us quickly go to the operator section. Okay, so first of all, what are operators? Operators are reserved symbols that operates on variables and integers. Decimals, I mean it works on all numerical values as well as variables. It also works on strings, but the behavior is different, as in polymorphism. So operators polymorphified so that they can work with different types of data. If you are using strings, it will join two strings. So this is how the operators work. Now I have provided only 3 types of operators. There are a total of 8 types of operators in Java. We will be covering that in our advanced episodes. Okay. So in arithmetic operators, we have the addition sign or the plus sign. You know, it is used to add variables with numerical values, integer values, decimal values, and to join strings which are in format of text. Subtraction, simply taking out a value from another one. Slash means division and asterisk means multiplication. You can use variable name and any numerical value as well. You can use BODMAS rule in it as well. I'll be telling you how can you use BODMAS rule. Logical operators. To and means and two long straight dashes means or, and are used in if-else statements where the condition are given that the two conditions must match. Two or more conditions are provided. If all the conditions are matched, then only the piece of code will be executed. And the or operators will do is that maybe there is some options that if this condition does not match, then you have to match this one for giving the same output. I mean the criteria will be same, but any one of the operators must match. Assignment operators are those used to compare and initialize variables. We will be discussing assignment operators now. So first of all, we are going to use the double equals to operator. Now what is double equals to operator? It is used to compare something. The second one is single equals to. So it is initializing some values. Let's say, let's go to the editor and initialize using the single equals to. Okay, so I want to say that the a value will be 10. So how can I do that? Simply initialize the identifier a is equals to 10. I can write a equals to 10 because I have already declared that a is a data type. I mean a identifier of the data type integer. If I do not declare, then Java will send me an error that a is not a data type, neither a keyword. So a equals to 10. Now I want to prove that yes, a equals to 10. How can I prove it? Simply printing it. So I'll print it on the screen and say that yes, the value is 10. I will save this and compile this. I have already told how can you compile your Java files, how can you run your Java files. So please check my previous episode to get the full knowledge of it. Java C or Java compile example.java. Okay, so my file is compiled. Let's run it. Java example. Then because I have initialized this value. Now you can reduce the code as well here. How? By simply declaring and initializing at the same time. How can you do that? A is equals to 10. What does this statement means? There is an integer data type. What is the data type? Identifier is a. And what it is doing? If I say semicolon, then it is doing nothing. It has been declared. But if I say equals to, then the system will get that yes, it is equals to 10. And now the code will reduce, but the output will be same. Let's save this and compile it again. Okay, so we have compiled it. Now let's run it. The answer will be same because we just done the we have reduced the code so that we do not have to write 2 times to initialize a variable. Now that is for integers. Now let's see how can you do arithmetic functions with it. You can add, subtract, divide and multiply these operators. Let's say I want to find the value of a plus b. I have another integer which is b is equals to 20. How can I do this? You can do this by b plus c. Yes, you can do this, but then what will happen? What will happen then? Nothing will happen. Let me show you. Nothing will happen. Okay, I have didn't provided the extension. You have to provide the extension whenever you are going to compile. Nothing is going to occur. Not a statement. Yeah, nothing will happen. You are not storing this somewhere. You have to store these variables. To store it, simply write another integer data type. Do not use another data types because integer cannot be converted into other data types. So I will say integer, what is the identifier? Output is equals to b sum of b and c. If you don't want, you do not give any spaces, that's totally up to you. Okay, b plus a, sorry, that is also thing, a and I given c, maybe that is the reason why it is showing error. Okay, so let's clear the screen. Okay, so I have I didn't save it, right? Okay, .java, and now I will say, but this program will output nothing, absolutely nothing, because we are not printing the output. How can we expect to have a value? To print the output, we will say dot print what output, which is a variable, therefore I am not giving any quotations. Save it, go to javac example.java and then run. Okay, 30, 10 plus 20 is 30, we all know. So this is how the addition works. Now if you want to multiply, simply give multiplication sign, that is asterisk in Java, and again save this and compile it. Java example 200, 10 into 20, 200. Now let's see how division works. So what is the value of b? 20. And what is the value of a? 10. So if I divide b and a, I will get is 2. Yeah, 2, I will get 2, and the 2 will be stored initialized to output. Save this program and run. Again, I'm very sorry, I do not provided the extension. Man. Okay, let's compile it. It's 2. Okay, now you can also subtract it. From 20 you can subtract 10, you will get 10. Save this first, compile this again. Man, so we have compiled it. Now we're going to run it. 10, yeah, 20 minus 10 is 10. Okay, so we have already worked with the integers. Now let's work with the floating values. So I will add another file, that is floating dot dot java. So I have a public class floating and a method, that is public static void main. In string you have to specify s as capital. Okay, now as we did in the previous example, we are going to declare floating values. Let's say float a. Since these two are different classes, we can declare same variable names as well, but you cannot declare two identifiers of same reference in a single class or method. Okay, so float a is equals to 10.1 and float b is equals to 20.6. Now what we are going to do is add this in another float, that is float c equals to a plus b, and going to output it. Println c. Okay, save this and compile this. Java C or Java compile floating dot java. What is this? What is this double? .6 and 1.6. Okay, actually I don't know why is this happening, but I never encountered these errors. Incompatible types, possible lossy conversion from double to float. I don't know why is this happening, but floats actually supports decimal. There may be some issues going on with my Java compiler right now. That is why the problem is happening. So I'm going to use double. So let's see if it works on double as well. The syntax is the same. Let's see if it works now. I don't know why the error is being. I have actually no idea why the error is going. I have tested my programs previously and it was not the case. I will check it after this session. Okay. Okay. 6.5, yeah. So adding 2.6 and 3.9 will give you 6.5. Let's say 5 a 5. Okay, 5 and save this. Save this as clear this and save java c file name dot java java 6.6. okay, let's differentiate the values again. 9.3 and save this, and let's see if we get something else. Floating.java 6.58. okay, so this is the example of double and floats. You can use BlueJ as well. It is quite easy to use and you don't have to use command line or such folder things to work on. Simply right click, create your files, and you can go with your program. That's it. Okay, so these are some basic operations on addition, subtraction, divisions. Now we are going to work with some other operators as well. So what are the other operators we are going to work with? The other operators we are going to work with is the comparison operators. Those are equals to, not equals to, those operators. Now how can you do them? Very simple. You have to use if else. I have already described this in my previous session. So let's create another file. Wait. Maybe some problem has occurred. Okay, so we are going to add any name. Let's see, yeah, any name dot java. Okay, now we are going to use if else here. Let's say we have a void main with argument string. Now let's create a simple if else program. If your marks is greater than 50, then you will be passed. If your marks is less than 50, you will be failed. Let's say integer marks is equals to 10. Suppose your marks is 10. Now we will say if marks is greater than 50. Now this greater than, less than and equals to signs are similar to our mathematical expressions as well. So I hope that will not be a problem. If marks is greater than 50, the code in this bracket will be executed. What is that? You can just give any code. So I will say system dot out dot println, say you are passed, or else, actually I've discussed this, so I'm going rush to it. You failed. Okay, system dot out. I have saved this. Now let's compile this. Java. You failed. Of course you will fail because it is not greater than 50. Okay, I have already discussed this in previous session, but now the question is, how can you take input from user? I have also discussed how you can use two classes simultaneously. Okay, so using that formula, we are going to create something that we can take input from. Let's say user input. So it will take user input. Now we have to import a class. We are going to introduce to a new keyword import. What import does? Import actually gains the properties of another package. Here it is package, not another class. Since the class that we are going to use for taking user inputs is not in our folder, we have to import that. That is, we are going to use. See here, the polymorphism and inheritance is working. You are not rewriting the whole code to take in user input. You are simply using a class that already been created by Java developers. So it is saving you much time. Okay, so let's import the file name. To import the is java dot util dot s capital scanner. So we are going to use scanner class. Okay, so let's say I have a static void a main method with a string argument. Okay, as I've discussed in my earlier video, how are we going to use this scanner class? How? Now this scanner class is actually be used as a data type. How? Let's say scanner is a data type because we have imported it. It is an identifier of a class but can be used as a data type. So I am declaring objects of that class. So let's declare an object which is not a keyword, not some special character, but a new unique identifier. That is a scanner a object of scanner is equals to new scanner. I have already discussed this new, how you are getting a new variable for the previous one. And what is the argument of this scanner? Well, since we are taking the input from keyboard, so we will say system dot in and semicolon. Now there are several methods of scanner class. Those are next int, next float, next next double. So those are to be used depending upon data type. So what we are going to input is a integer value. So we are going to use, first of all, declare the variable we are going to use to take the input from the user. Let's say input. Now I will say that what will be the value of input. Input, when the input, the value will be input, will be a value returned from the class of scanner, that is a dot next integer. So what it does is, first of all, calls next dot integer to take a value from keyboard. When the user enters something in keyboard and press enters, then the value will be inserted into input. So let's add this. Okay, someone commented here, I'm just saying you are the third person with this accent I have found in the past 30 minutes. Thanks, the British gamer. Okay, let's continue. So input a dot next integer. So the next integer method will be called by the manager. I have already defined this. A is, simply imagine that A is a manager. A is a manager who has the access to call any function in the scanner class, any functions. So we need an integer. So we are calling the integer function that will take the integer input and then passing the value to input identifier which is defined as integer. Okay, now we have to print this. So let's say system dot out dot println you have entered, what you have entered, input plus input. Now this is something you have to know. You can actually join a string with a variable, right, simply by using the plus. Here the polymorphism is working again. When you are adding two variables with numerical values, it will add them and return a third numerical value. But when you add one string with another value, that may be text, that is strings, that may be a numerical, then you are getting a third string. So this is my program. Let's save it and compile. Sorry. User input. So I have compiled this. Now when I will do, it will give me this. See, here I am going to input 10. You have entered 10. So as we expected, our program worked similarly like that. So this was an example of how you can use other classes in your class as well. Though it is out of agenda, but I still told you because it is important to know. I'll be discussing this in detail in the next episode as well. Actually, there is a class today only from 9 p.m. Okay, so we have did these things. Now let's get back to our presentation. Okay, so we have now the logical operators. We have already worked with the arithmetic operators. Now let's go work with the logical operators. What are these logical operators? Let's open the editor. Yep, and we are going to use the logical operators. Let's create another file. I will say this file the problem is occurring again. Okay, logical.java. Okay, so we have this logical.java file. Now let's say logical static void main okay, so we are going to use the logical operators in this main method. So how the logical operator works, let's give a comment here. Okay, so the and or it is actually bitwise and the bitwise and does is it takes two condition and forces that these two condition must match. If these two condition does not match, then we have to go to the else one. Okay, let's take an example. I say I have an integer which is a, which is 30. Now I will say if a greater than 30, then I will say, I will make the program say a is greater than 30, but I also want to say that it is greater as well as a not equals to 30. So when a is greater than 30 as well as not equals to 30, it will give this print statement a is greater than 30, and then let's say else. What is this? I say else just simply print a is either equals or less than 30. Okay, now save this logical.java and I will compile it. Logical.java. What is this? Is there any problem again? Okay, I think there is some problem with my compiler today. I don't know what is. I think maybe some file has got corrupted. It is not showing some errors from my syntaxes. It is showing some different kind of error from different world. Actually, there is some problem in importing some files. Okay, it's not good. Let's retreat. Let's run it from here. So it is compiling. Build fail. I think some problem with the compiler is working. Okay, but if you run this, you will get that the answer will be a is either equals to or less than 30, because a is 30, and we say a should not be equals to 30 and a should be greater than 30. That is why this will not be printed. If you give something 31, 32, then it will be printed this. Okay, so I'm ending the session here. I'll be discussing the rest of the operators in our next session. I'm having some problems with the compiler. I will fix it as soon as possible, and we'll discuss the rest of the operators as well as some new object-oriented Java programs will be ready in the 9 PM class today. Thanks for watching. If you like it, please subscribe and also share this video if you want someone to learn from me as well. Bye, I'm ending the stream here.